Stuart, big game on Sunday coming up against Rangers. How's the team looking?
They're fine. I think we've kind of got the same injuries and issues that we had before the Hearts game. I think more in terms of the mentality. We spoke about a couple of tough defeats that we had. Penalty against Celtic and then penalty shootout against St Mirren. Really competitive in those games. We performed well in those games, and I thought for a spell against Hearts we performed well. But I think ultimately at the end of the game, at the end of 90 minutes, it felt totally different because it was something that we hadn't seen from the group. So very much for us this week, it's been a case of trying to reset. Let's get back to what we're good at. Try and ensure how do you coach, how do you train, concentration, individual errors, that type of thing. But I've always been big. I always say that I believe I'm someone that looks to develop, and I think to develop you can't be knee-jerk, so me ranting, raving, screaming and shouting, pointing fingers is never going to be a good thing. The players realise that. And it's a case of hold your hands up, except when you've made a mistake, except when you've come off your levels and ensure you get back on the horse as quick as you possibly can. So that's really what it's been all about for us in the early part of the week.
Yeah, and we've seen this week Daniel's got his operation. He put online it was a success. Is he doing all right?
Is that what we do now? Do we post these things on social media? I don't know. Listen, I've spoke to him this morning. Delighted. It looks as if the op's been a success. Again, with these things, you're sending them to the best people out there. He's been really, really positive. I think the initial blows, you can imagine, was gut wrenching for him. But once he's get back amongst us all here, before he had his operation, I think he was looking at what comes now in the future. So yeah, I spoke to him this morning. He's in good spirits. As I say, it looks as if it's a success. He'll be a bit sore. There'll be a case of just trying to get him back up and get him on his feet. But my message to him is that that's the start of the next chapter of his career now. It's a chance now to kick forward. There'll be some tough times in a rehabilitation, but he's got the best people working with him here. So we'll all be 100% behind him. And I genuinely believe that he can and he will be a stronger player, stronger individual coming back from it.
Yeah, and moving on to Sunday now, you're facing Rangers. Poor result for them last night in Europe, new manager. How do you go into that game now? Do you kind of write off what's happened before with Rangers when it's a new man in the door, or how do you see it?
Yeah, it's been really interesting for us because we are meticulous in the work that we do, in and out of possession, and it's been difficult this week. It has with the announcement of new manager. You're almost sitting waiting to see who it is, to see what that will mean in terms of how Rangers will play, system, style, all those different types of things. So we've had to work a wee bit different this week. I've quite enjoyed the challenge because I think what we often work off that kind of 3 previous game cycle. So we would always analyse 3 previous games, and we're not really able to do that. So kind of what we're looking at is player traits, kind of what we're looking at is strengths and weaknesses, and then off the back of the game last night we will analyse that, but we're having to take other things into consideration. How much emphasis can you put on Danny Rowe being the Sheffield Wednesday manager because it's a different club and a different country and things like that. But I think you're looking for traits, you're looking for aspects that he'll look for from his team. So between myself, the staff and the analysts at the football club, we have been working hard on that. And as always, that's not to try and be clever, it's just to try and make sure the players have all the information that they possibly can get. And I think we know the modern game. I think every single one of our players would have sat there and watched the game last night. However, we also need to acknowledge that it'll be a completely different game on Sunday as well. So, yeah, there's been a few challenges in there, but I think ultimately where I come back to it is we need to be better at what we want to be than what we were for a chunk of the game against Hearts.
What did you make of Rangers' performance last night?
I think, it's a difficult one, as I say, to analyse because you've had 2 days to go in and take a big European game away from home. Sometimes a wee bit easier at home. You get a little bit more time, I suppose, if you're not travelling, if you're not doing press conferences, announcing a new manager. You wonder sometimes where they get the time to put the team together because it must have been a whirlwind sort of 48 hours. But as I say, European games are different quite clearly from domestic games. Home and away is different. I don't know what I expected in terms of would there be a dramatic shape change, would there be massive personnel changes. I think the answer was no on both fronts. There was a couple of changes, as sometimes you expect, and also in terms of shape, it was slightly, well, it was more or less the same as it's been. So I think for us, that angle of looking at the players, the traits, I get this narrative at the minute that everybody's jumping in the bandwagon. People will be talking about that result not being good enough last night. But again, when you start to look at it closely, there are a lot of good players in that Rangers squad. There's been heavy investment to make sure that they bring in what they feel are top players and guys that can really flourish at the football club. So I suppose from my side, yeah, I get and acknowledge that it's not been a start in performances that Rangers support or staff or players would be expecting, but I'm also the guy that really expects the best version of them on Sunday, and I think if you go in imagining something different, you're very, very naive, and sometimes I think that's where you can get a smack in the face.
But their own captain described the performance as disgraceful. How much encouragement can you take from that? Yeah,
I think their own captain's entitled to that when you've done what he's done at the football club and you've been there as long as he has been. I'm a massive fan of James Tavernier. I have been for many, many years. So again, I'll always show the utmost respect. He's entitled to speak that way and he's entitled to say the words that he did. I'm not, because I've not played, coached or managed for Rangers. So again, I always talk about this bit of walking in the shoes. He'll understand what the standards are that's expected. So from that point of view, I'll analyse the performance and how they played, but I'll not start passing comment about what I thought about it, or starting to give a clear description of what other people may or may not think.
You mentioned Rangers quality, but from your point of view, you must go to Ibrox with no fear and really a chance to get at them, considering the quality you have as well with the squad. There can't be that fear factor anymore of going to these places, is there? Yeah, but
I also need to stress that as well, that I've been going to Rangers, I've gone to Ibrox for many years as a manager now, and I've always felt that way, because I think if you do it any other way, then you're being disrespectful to your own football club and your own players and your own supporters. So I can hand on my heart tell you that every single time that I've went to big stadiums against big clubs, I've always believed we could win the game of football. I've never been any different, and I never will be moving forward, so that doesn't change.
The start of the game, how crucial will that be? You can imagine what that crowd could be like should things not go Rangers' way. Can that be an additional factor and help you guys on? Yeah, again, but I think we're jumping on a narrative here that we think is something that we don't talk about every single week, because I can tell you and go around the country and ask all the clubs that if you go to an away ground, we speak about it every single week, about getting a good start and trying to turn the home support or that energy, try to turn that into negativity. That's the same everywhere. I think what we want to do is we want to make it a bigger story just now, because maybe you're playing against a team that isn't getting the results that they would expect. So it's no different from how I speak to the players every second week when we're on the road. But again, you're going to ask other managers around the country. That's what we look for.
How good of a reference point is that Celtic game in terms of the levels that were required at that sort of, in these type of games?
For ourselves a few weeks back, I think they're different games. Again, they are different games. We talk about getting off to a good start. I thought we got off to a great start last week against Hearts, so we all want that. We all want a good opening 10-15 minutes, really stamp your authority in the game and get a foothold in the game. But you need to continue that. You still need to go for another 70-75 minutes and make sure that you're doing the right things within the game. So yeah, start's a good thing, and trying to change the mood in the stadium. But one good moment for you can enhance that, but one bad moment for you can change the atmosphere in there as well. So I think my basic principle is, off the back of last week, is that we need to keep the concentration levels that I've seen since day one, and we didn't quite have that last week. So we need to make sure that we're completely focused, good emotional intelligence of dealing with a big environment against good players, and you have to make sure that your concentration levels are through the roof for the duration of a game. You switch off for a minute, you look at that Rangers squad, there's guys that will punish you and there's guys that will hurt you.
How's the rest of the squad? Any other knocks over from weekends?
No, not really. We've had to manage one or two, but I would suggest to you that the squad's virtually going to be the same as it was going into the Hearts game. I don't really foresee. I think probably the only one that you'd maybe look at is somebody like a Tom Lowry's had another full week's training and looking good. So yeah, possibly adding to it rather than taking anything away from last Saturday.
just one more from me, Stuart. Tonight, Rory Mackenzie's testimonial dinner. How important is he to the football club? He's been here for so long. Is he someone that you're so happy to turn to on the bench when you know he's such a trusted player and been here for such a long time?
Yeah, but without question, since the day and minute that I came into the football club, and I know there's kind of been 3 events that we've been speaking about over the last few months, but he's top drawer in everything he does, how he handles himself, how he communicates with the rest of the group, with the staff. I wish you guys could see him every single day in training. It's no coincidence why he's been here for so long and had such a long career in the game. And as I say, I just see it as an example to young players. Train like that every day, handle yourself in that fashion every day, and you stand a real chance to have a good career. So no, we all look forward to going across the road tonight to his testimonial dinner to honour him. I think it's the last of 3 events, and anybody that knows Rory knows that he doesn't like to be the centre of attention, so I think there's a bit of him looking forward to it, but I think there's also a part that he would like to bring the process to an end. But fair play to everyone that's been involved in that. I've seen a few testimonials over the years in terms of the game, the golf days and the dinners, but to this point I think they've been exceptional in their organisation and the support he's received, and rightfully so.
Good luck.
Thanks very much, thank you.